And then something for final shape. Do you think they will do a sixth element, a third darkness subclass, or do you think they'd leave it at 5? Do you think there'll be another one?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to the symmetry of things, it's not as though it's subtly implied, but it's also not directly stated. It's just very heavily assumed that when we go into final shape, we will be getting a final subclass. You know, I would expect it would be something along the lines of resonance, whatever that ends up being. You know, the kind of similar power that we saw Calus wield in his boss fight, the similar power that we've seen out of Rolk and the Caretaker, and anything to do with pyramid tech generally. I think that us wielding resonance is going to be the last thing that happens, and that'll probably be a journey that we set off along when we actually defeat the Witness.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they even do it, because Strand, I think, was very, very, very impressive. I think it's probably the best designed subclass in Destiny. I think that's easy to say because it is the most recent. They've had the most time to work on it. So it is the most unique. But as far as how everything works and the threadlings and the hatchlings and all the different mechanics, there's no other. It really does, even though they updated the light subclasses to kind of be on some level, and they have all the like the verbiage with the scorch and the burn and the volatile and weak and all that stuff. It's still Strand, definitely. You can tell the difference between Bungie designing a subclass now, like, and obviously there's
Bungie
a lot of talk about
a subclass from 9 years ago, right?
Yeah, we've seen obviously a lot of talk about how it might have been some kind of poison subclass, and I for one am definitely glad it wasn't. Initially I did like the idea of poison. I thought poison would be very cool, but as a lot of people have said, it would be hard to make it not just be another just burn damage over time. But what they did do with Strand, it was, I think the one issue with Strand is that it wasn't introduced very well. As we said with the campaign, giving you this just trash version of Strand with just no fragments, and like you're trying to learn this new expansion and trying to explore Neptune, that just wasn't the time to be trying to learn this very neutered version of Strand. So it kind of, you know, they keep giving you this, like, if you're playing legendary mode, this very difficult boss fight, and then they give you all these Strand grapple points. It's like, now is like, I don't want to be grappling around this arena. I want to go invisible and use actually powerful stuff. But then obviously after you beat the campaign, and after I think week 2 or something, when most of the fragments are unlocked, then you actually start to see Strand is actually one of the best subclasses in the game. Very powerful. Suspend is just ridiculous. It's one of the most fun things ever. Just being able to completely immobilize enemies and champions and tormentors. Like, Suspend is very, very cool. But Strand shaped up to be very well, but the version that you get during the campaign almost makes you not want to play it, because again, they give it to you and then it's gone for like 20 seconds, and then, or you get it for 20 seconds, then it's gone. But it turned out to be very, very good. But if they were to do, or when they do a 6th and 3rd darkness element, I'm interested to see, because obviously grapple and movement was the theme of Strand. I wonder what kind of big gameplay thing this 6th one will be based around, because it definitely obviously will be it won't just be another damage over time thing. It'll be something unique, but who knows whether it's like building, or I don't even know. I'm trying to imagine where Bungie, because none of us could have imagined Strand, but that does interest me, the thought of what this 6th one would be, and that it is not that long away to get 2 new subclasses back to back, which would be cool.
Yeah, I also have to say that as far as Strand is concerned, whilst the other subclasses have had very strong visual identities, because most of them are elements, I mean, you know, electricity, fire, ice, this has had a very strong narrative identity, you know, strands of the universe being pulled apart and the threads of fate and consciousness. Like, the lore around Strand in particular was actually something worth making a video about this time around, where with Stasis, it was kind of just like, I mean, cosmic ice, you know, and like, yeah, sure, there's things about control and darkness and corruption and certain bits and pieces, but nowhere near as strong as the stuff that they've written about Strand, where you could sit there and you could legitimately understand why certain aspects of Strand visually are the way that they are, and how some of these powers manifest in the way that they do. You know, it's a really fascinating story aspect with Strand being the way that it is. And it, you know, it makes perfect sense as to why some of these things can just appear out of nowhere as well. You know, any living thing, even a Vex, which is technically a bunch of microscopic organisms inhabiting a a frame, they have some kind of thought to them, and therefore you can affect them with the threads of Strand, the threads of everything that binds them together, you know? There's really cool ideas in that, and the fact that it does just holster up out of nothing and that you can grapple to anywhere because the web is everywhere, you know, these are really cool ideas to display within the subclass and the actual gameplay of it. Like, for all of Strand's failure to be kind of something that was well integrated in the campaign, in the other sense, where you look at Strand and its lore and how it's, you know, integrated into everything else, absolutely incredible. Seeing it and actually reading up on some of that lore made me chuckle, because I sat there and I was like, damn, if we just learned about this in this context alone, and this had been like a totally different side quest from the campaign, and we'd seen all of this detail and it wasn't integrated, yeah, that would have been amazing. I would have loved to see like a 3-mission quest or something where in each of them you start to learn all these new aspects about Strand and understand about like, hey, you are tugging on the threads of fate here. Like, awesome stuff. Just, yeah, they've written some really great stuff about Strand, and I can't go on about how much I love that.
Yeah, no, I think Strand is tough shoes to fill, but I think it ended up being very solid, very, very solid.